Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys are enjoying the 2023 Calgary Maker Faire. Yes. With me are two very special guests. One a very good friend of mine, and one a very new, and I'm going to say good friend of mine as well. We have Josef Prusa on the end, of the owner.
Hello, and thank you.
Of Prusa Research. We're going to talk a little bit about his journey in making and how he started the empire in which he has. And with me here is my good friend Ben Eadie. If you don't know who Ben Eadie is, you've seen his work. On YouTube, you guys all watch YouTube, yeah? Yes, maybe? What? Anybody seen Wednesday on Netflix?
No. So Wednesday the show, no, but if you've seen the YouTube clips where you have Thing walking around scaring people in New York City, that's a robot I built.
And he's also written an article and featured in this month's Make magazine. On the cover is the robotic Thing, right?
Yeah, we've got robotic Thing in there, and then I do a methodology for making robots that's a little outside of what most people do. And so I'm giving people my secret on what I do to make me look really good in the movie industry, but I think it can apply to a lot of different places, and I want to see other people use it. So it's a more effective way to run robotics, in my opinion.
Joe, let me ask you real quick. You got started in 3D printing how long ago?
So I started when I was 19, so that is 14 years ago.
So in 14 years, you went from the RepRap movement, which was a triangular style 3D printer, correct?
So the RepRap is a project which started at the University of Bath by Dr. Adrian Boyer. And his goal with his then student, Ed Sells, was to make accessible 3D printers, which are open source and self-replicating. And they started with this project, and I joined a little bit later on. And because I was, I found the machines which were available as files back then too complicated. So, e.g., I was too lazy to build them because it took so long. I started to simplify it, and I got it, I guess, right. Because at some point you could build it in just 2 days over a weekend. So we started to do build shows. And yeah, it was my hobby for 3 years. But then I decided that I will quit my university and start Prusa Research.
Now, Ben, you've taken your passion for making and turned that into a career. Let's talk a little bit about that.
So, it's funny, about the same time that Joseph was out doing this is I worked as a freelance engineer. My background is aeronautical engineering, and a friend of mine got a hold of me and asked me if I could help out with a special effect for a movie. And the next thing you know was I was working on Star Trek Beyond and designed some of the largest rotating sets in movie history. Now, this was in about 2014. And when we were doing that, I was saying, hey, you should start using 3D printers. And I was using printers that Joseph was working on and developing at that point in time. In fact, I used a printer to print off one of his models to make stuff. But trying to convince the industry to use that was a bit difficult. And this isn't all that long ago. We're talking like 8, 10 years ago. And now they are used almost ubiquitously throughout a lot of different movies and stuff. But I like on Star Trek Beyond, when Uhura is going into the engine compartment to pull out the power cell, a lot of those fins and everything were printed off on a printer that I made based off of stuff that you helped me figure out. So you end up coming to Maker Fairs and stuff like this, and you meet people like, I really do need to thank Joseph for helping my career, because if it weren't for that, I wouldn't continue on working in different shows.
Now that's a great segue back to Joseph. Now you have one of the biggest Maker Fairs in the world in Prague. Let's tell us a little bit about your Maker Fairs.
So I've been traveling to Maker Fairs in the United States from the very early on, even when 3D printing was just my hobby. I was invited to New York, and when I visited there, it was my first time in North America. I was like, wow. And at some point I was like, hey, we are successful enough that we can maybe help bring Maker Faire to Prague too. So we did it, and I think it's one of the best in Europe, and we have one this year too. If anyone wants to have a quick trip to Prague.
Ben and I may come together. Not as a couple.
Maliciously. So, in my previous lifetime working as an engineer, I lived in the Czech Republic in near Brno and some different cities. But that country is Canada with a different language. I find there's more culture shock going across the border to the south than there is going to the Czech Republic. So for this is, you do want to go visit the Czech Republic. So just, weird plug.
Now, I've seen many of the Maker Fairs that have been done in Prague over the years. They're all over the internet. If you haven't seen them, man, go check them out because they are just a wild ride to watch. There are makers that are steampunk. There are makers that are doing weird things with giant smoke guns. There are 3D printers. Now, you do a contest every year with a lot of the young makers at your Maker Faire, where you give away a lot of Prusa printers. Tell us a little bit about those contests. Maybe we can incorporate them into our Maker Faire. What do you guys think?
So I don't remember. I don't know exact name of it, but kids can build little race cars, and then they are launched from a giant ramp. What's the name of it?
I think derby racing they call it.
Yeah, derby racing. So we do that.
We do that on hills with real cars that don't have brakes here in Canada.
Okay. And I wanted to go outside the city and explore a little bit tomorrow, but I will be very careful.
If you see somebody yelling, you know they have no brakes. Get out of the way. This is Alberta, after all. Now, Joe, real quick, you've taken your passion for 3D printing and making and turned it into this amazing company where you are pumping out parts on your own printers. Your printers make printers. Tell us a little bit about how that all got started and the project and where it is now.
So that is from the RepRap project. As I said, RepRap means replicating rapid prototyper, and we are still to this day using 3D printers for manufacturing. And I think that all the 3D printer manufacturers should be forced to use their own machines for production, because the 3D printing world would be much different place right now. But I think that is the reason we have 700 or over 700 machines on our farm, and just with our team members across the offices, we have another 300-400 machines. So we have a very large set of machines to test, and it allows us to optimize the machines that they work, and you can repair them easily.
One of the beautiful things about the Prusa machines, and I can say this from my own experience having and still owning one, is that when you buy that machine, you don't just buy a machine. You buy a reputation, and you buy a product that is backed by a company that will back you as a maker.
Thank you.
Now, Ben, let's talk a little bit about some of the stuff we've done. We have a couple of stories, but we're not going to get into those. But
we can dive in a little.
We can dive in a little bit. There was a project. We won't tell what project it is, but
you asked the question. If it happens to slip out of my mouth, then
okay. We did a project together, and while Ben came to me one day, this is before we became really good friends. He came to me one day and he says, "Richard, I need this printed." And I said, "What is it?" "I can't tell you." "Well, if you can't tell me, I can't print it. But I need you to print it." but I need to know what it is or I can't print it. Give me 5 minutes. He ran out of my office. 5 minutes later, he comes back and says, check your email. There was a wonderful email that I had to sign. It was a document. We won't say what kind of document.
It was an NDA.
It was an NDA, okay. So I can't talk about, well, I couldn't talk about it, but I kind of can now. And Ben says to me, he says, can you print it? I looked at it and went, yes. I said, why can't you print it? You're a 3D printer like myself. I only teach this stuff. You make stuff for the movies. I've tried 10 times.
Well, okay, so on several occasions I will be trying to print something out and I'll get a test print working perfectly. And a lot of productions aren't going to necessarily rent my printers, and they're not necessarily going to buy a reputable printer that you use. So they think that they can buy a cheap printer and you can use that and it'll be great. And it rarely works out well. So while working on a ghost-like apparition movie, we needed a whole bunch of ghost whistles made. And we also had ones made from Adam Savage, but we needed some ones printed out for, and these shots were never used, but things that could be destroyed. So I needed a whole bunch of death whistles that we could get made, and I didn't have time to make it. So, you know, people will come up and meet me here in the city, and Richard's one of my known people, is that if I need help 3D printing stuff, I will get a hold of my friends and they will manufacture stuff. So a lot of production companies will hire me because they know that I might not necessarily have the printers, but I have an almost instant infrastructure of manufacturing that I can leverage immediately. I would say the first new season of Fraggle Rock, if it weren't for 3D printer people like Richard, certain things in that show would have never happened because we didn't have time to make it. So I reached out to people with 3D printers to make it, and that sort of distributed manufacturing is massive. And if you learn how to leverage it, or you have a 3D printer, let me know, because I might give you a call one day going, here's an NDA, you can't talk about it, but I need you to print something off for me.
Now this brings us kind of full circle to what we've been talking about throughout the Maker Faire and what the really theme of the Maker Faire is. It doesn't matter what you're into, whether it be photography, whether it be making stuff with your 3D printer, design, using your hands to do wood or some carvings like we've seen here throughout the Maker Faire. You can take that and either make it into a small business, parlay that into a career. Joe's a great example of that. A guy who loved 3D printing, wanted to get into it more, found a passion for it, and built a multi-million-dollar company. And now you're buying up companies in the US and around the world.
I'm just happy that everyone who's using my machine is happy with it.
Well, I can tell you I'm happy with mine.
Thank you.
Now, Ben, let's talk about what's next for you. Where are you going next? What's your next big project?
I can't say. Okay, so
you'll all have to sign an NDA before you leave.
This is one thing where it's an interesting life in the sense that my friends don't know what I'm working on until 6 to 8 months after I've actually done it. There's a couple things I can and can't say. One of the things I can say is that my friend Michael Corey, he's on TikTok and Facebook and YouTube. He does a thing called Props to History, and he'll show you the history of props and special effects in the movie. He's a really good friend of mine. And we started talking about a show that I want to see happen. And it's a Mythbusters-like type show, and we're gonna call it Record Breaker Labs. And we've pitched it to Netflix and Warner Brother and Sony, and we've got a few other Discovery, we've got a few other people there that seem to be taking up on that. So hopefully, if this goes well, I have some meetings actually in a couple of weeks that maybe we can get a Mythbusters-like show out there, because there's kind of an empty void in that sense. Bonus is I met Adam Savage when I was working on Ghostbusters, and we became good friends, and I hope that we can bring him in and have him do a cameo or two. But yeah, that's one thing I can't talk about. Okay.
There we go. Now, you guys obviously have questions, because this is a Q&A.
I hope this happens.
Yeah, me too.
Good luck, man.
Well, so this is in my pitch for the movie, or for the show, is like breaking world records. And I want to make one of the world's largest Lego sets. I want to do a 10 times size version of the Death Star, but I need some 3D printers.
How many people have 3D printers in the audience? Raise your hand.
I might need to be calling on everybody to print off Lego pieces that are 10 times normal size.
I think Joe's got a machine that can do that.
I hope so.
It's called the XL.
Yeah, but I have the fleet of machines, but we have plenty of printers to print.
Yes, I understand. I'm being silly.
So let's take some questions from you guys. Anybody got a question for Joe? Anybody about, no? Yes, maybe? You guys are all pretty quiet, sedate. Oh, there we go. What's your question?
So the question is if we have plans to make any consumer version of AFS. I would say it just, you know, the automated farm system is such a scale that I'm not sure if I can imagine what does it mean to have a consumer grade AFS, if you know what I mean. If you are printing so much stuff for yourself, I don't know. So it haven't crossed my mind. I can't talk about that.
Let's just say he's always developing something new.
So one question I have for Josef is that I found in my workflow, and we're talking months since, like, say, ChatGPT and some of the AI tools have come out. I found that ChatGPT can help me rough out some code systems for a microcontroller board, and it in its very infancy has drastically affected the time scope and quoting that I do for some of my robotics projects. I'm curious if you've seen any, and you don't have to be specific, but has there been any AI major sort of aha moments that you felt in the few months that AI has been out?
So directly in 3D printing, I would say not yet. There have been some experiments of text to model, but for example, you know, it will take quite some time to be able to do like engineering stuff you and me are doing. It will probably be maybe a scribble to a model. I don't know, but yeah, I think we have very interesting times ahead. I am cautious. I am anxiously waiting what will happen with online communities, because, you know, it might happen that we humans would like to meet up more offline than online, because it might be just chatbots arguing with chatbots.
It's kind of like people.
So that's why we are here, you know?
That's right.
Meeting people in real life.
Now, Joe, I'm going to ask you, this is your first time in Canada.
Yes, this is my first time in Canada. Thank you, everyone, for such a warm welcome.
Now, will you come back if we have another one of these?
I will definitely come back to Canada.
Come back to Calgary. We got to take you to the mountains next time you come here.
I love it here. I was joking, you know, when we landed here and got out of the airport area. The city is very nice, so I love it here.
I love it here too. I've been here now 15 years, and I got to tell you, I came from the bush country of Manitoba. Anybody who knows where Manitoba is, they'll know what I mean. And I got to tell you, I love the mountains, man. I do. It's just such a picturesque place. We hope that you'll be back with us next year.
I have one day tomorrow after from this whole 14-day tour. I have one day to travel a little bit, so I think I will fall in love with the nature here.
Well, we hope that you will.
When I saw the pictures, man.
Now, has anybody got a question for Ben about what he does in the movie industry? Anybody? There we go.
Yeah. What was my background to get into special effects? Now, the movie industry is really interesting in the sense that, okay, I'll answer the question, but it's a loaded answer in the sense that my background is aeronautical engineering. I designed and made aircraft for many years beforehand. And then I worked as a freelance engineer, did oil and gas and everything under the table because I'm just a creative type. a friend of mine was working in the movie industry and they needed some help with a special effect, and it turned out to be for Star Trek. I didn't know this at the time, but they hired me as a consultant to help out. Because of my skill set and because I actually made that actually work, I keep getting calls back. But that's not to say that you need to be an engineer. It doesn't mean that you have to go and take film school. It doesn't mean that you need to be, you know, an expert in anything. Is that I find in the movie industry that I would say a good 60 to 70% of the people there are fluke. You got in there because somebody recommended you. And then the second thing is that you stick around by your skills. So it's luck to get in, it's skill to stay, right? So if you're interested in that, the number one thing I recommend people do is there's a film union, mostly in North America and parts of Europe, called IATSE. It's IATSE. If you look up IATSE Calgary, which is IATSE 212, go in and you can apply. And when you become part of the union, the way it works is that you become part of a pool of workers that are local. And if a film company comes in, they have to hire a certain percentage of the film crew from that pool. If you're in that pool and they don't have anybody in your skill set, you're almost instantly going to be hired. Here's where it gets really cool, especially right now, is that there is a lot of production companies and there's a lot of movies coming here. There used to be only one sound stage in Calgary, now there are 1, 2, 3, I think 5. And they're having problems staffing it. So if you show up and you get a hold of IATSE, you fill things in and make sure you have like first aid and WMIS and a couple of little things, but they're very easy to acquire. Give them your skill set and you'll probably find that most people who apply to IATSE are generally working in a movie or TV show within a couple of weeks. And if you're a welder, if you know how to do makeup, if you know how to cut hair, if you can sweep a floor really good, and I know it sounds asinine, but that is an actual skill that people need, you'll be surprised that you could probably get a job almost instantly for any of that. And all you have to do is get into the union to be able to do that. You can work independent shows, but to be completely honest, I'm not a huge proponent of union people, but IATSE has treated me exceptionally well, and it is a place that you want to go. So that would be my recommendation for anybody who wants to get in.
Ladies and gentlemen, we've reached the end of our time here with our fine friends. So I would really love it if you guys would give them a big round of applause. Josef Prusa and Ben Eadie. These two guys, titans in not only 3D printing, but in the making community. Please follow them on their social medias. Go and check out the Prusa website. Check out printables.com. I wanted to quickly ask you about why you started printables.com.
I think when one of the competing websites started to shrivel down, I took it that it is my duty to provide a place for the community to have a nice place, nice and safe place to share their creations, and they feel motivated to design other stuff.
I will say this: if anybody of you guys are 3D printers, and I know that we have a few here, that if you haven't gone to printables.com, they have probably the most beautiful selection of high-grade models of any site out there. And that includes the competition. I'm not going to say who they are. But I will tell you this, that printables.com, get involved, sign up. It's free to sign up. You can load your models there. You can download other models, print them, try them. Make sure that you go and check out everything that Prusa has to offer. Make sure that you get this month's Make magazine. Features my friend Ben Eadie. He's got an article in there. He's going to be talking about robotics. He's got to talk about the thing hand and the journey that he went on with YouTube to get all that done. Again, another big hand for our special guest today.
Thank you very much.